What's going on, podcast listeners? My name is Michael Chernow. I am a restaurateur and lifestyle entrepreneur, and I am truly obsessed with living a life better than yesterday through wellness, fitness, and good vibes. I've always wondered if the drive to succeed is something we are born with, or if it's something that is made over time through grit, drive, and perseverance. I get to answer that question exactly, and the goal of this podcast is to talk with people that have absolutely crushed it in life and have inspired me to do the same. This is Born or Made. Ladies and gents, welcome back to the Born or Made podcast. I am incredibly excited to introduce my next guest today. He's a good buddy of mine. He is a DJ, world-renowned DJ. I don't think that I've been to an event in the last 5 years that he was not DJing at. He's also an entrepreneur. He's got his hands in a number of different businesses, real estate, talent management. I mean, there's really very little this guy doesn't do. He also happens to be one of the most stylish dudes I know. And coming from me, I think it's a big accolade, man, coming from Chernow.
Yeah, I'll take it.
I want to introduce my buddy Brendan Fallis. Brendan, welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir. I'm glad to be here, and congrats to you for launching this. No small feat in itself to get something like this off the ground.
Well, it's definitely been a journey. I've been working on it for some time now, and now that we're all sort of quarantined, it's gone from a studio to my house upstate, and it's been interesting and fun. I'm learning a lot.
Yeah, as you do.
Just to give you a quick background on what we do here, Born or Made is a podcast where I speak to people like you that have inspired me and many others to really talk about this topic of really nature nurture, whether you believe you were born with an inherent ability or talent to get to where you are today, or if you were made over time through mere dedication, commitment, and grit. I will say that there it is a combination of both, but I think there is an element of being born with a talent or not, and so that's what this podcast is all about. And I like to get through it by hearing your story and asking you, a bunch of questions. And for a guy like you, I definitely want to hear your story, but I also, because you've inspired me in so many ways. I mean, a lot of this stuff, there's this influencer category today, right? And I think it gets thrown around a lot. It's really hard to define what makes a true influencer. But when you strip it back and you sort of look at what that means, really it's putting stuff out into the universe that makes people want to try new things, right? I mean, I think that's really what it is. Sort of, it's a new way of marketing, but the way you've done it and the way I've appreciated how you've done it has absolutely influenced me, man. Whether it's books, whether it's clothing, whether it's a supplement or a style of exercise. I mean, you've truly influenced me, and I know that you have hundreds of thousands of people that follow you, and so I think that you really define what it means to be a true influencer, and so. I don't know, man. What do you think about this new sort of influencer marketing way of spreading the word?
Well, thank you first and foremost. I like to think the same about you, so it's nice that we're on the same page and learning from each other, because I think it's amazing to always see your peers but feel you're relatable and take notes from them. Whether again it's books, workouts, how you've been crushing businesses. Is super inspiring to me, and your outlook on how you can get something done with an idea and then gain across the line has always been super inspirational to me. So right back at you. On the side of influencer, like obviously it gets a terrible stigma, because I think anything new, any new category is super, has a massive lens on it, and people are looking for ways, because it's not traditional work, or not a traditional business. So I think yes, it does come with a bad rap because it should. I think some people out there are abusing what it means to be that, and not in like a bad way, but just aren't like really passionate about it or do it in a way that I don't feel is proper. But that goes the same with any industry. Like DJing, for instance, is super on that level. There's so many terrible DJs out there who don't know what they're doing, but yet they work all the time and it doesn't really matter. There's nerd level DJing on like, you're so technical and you can do everything. And then there's, I can just curate a playlist and I don't know how to mix anything. Is that DJing or not? TBD. People are still out there doing what they're passionate about. So I think influencer does get a bad rap. I personally don't like to consider myself one because I don't like a lot of the stigmas it comes with. But again, like I do appreciate the fact that a lot of people do it. And I do appreciate the fact that someone like you, who I greatly respect, can sit here and say like, you influence me. Like that doesn't make me disrespect the word or the category. It actually makes me appreciate it. But then there's other times I wouldn't appreciate it, But I think everyone right now, even if you have Instagram or not, you're an influencer. You tell your friend, hey, I love an iPhone. This is why you should move from Android. Someone's like, oh, I got this car. Should I get that car? Or you come over for dinner, like, this is a great wine. And you influence someone to do it. Like, we're all influencers. It's just whether you take it across a certain level that, becomes, I guess, social, and then you're influencing the masses versus your friend group. But it's not like it's something that didn't exist. There's just now a platform that allows it to become a career of sorts.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and that's why when I introduced you, I didn't throw influencer out there because I think though you are, I mean, I'm just going to call you are an influencer because you influence people, and I think that at the core is what that title is, right? It's if you're able to, in an authentic way, convince people to be interested in something, so because it's not your job. Right? I mean, there are people out there that literally all they do all day long is post pictures of them with products and get paid not a lot of money to do it. And if you line up enough, $50 to $100 a photo or a post products, you can make a little cash. But your career in life is really you travel around the world and you turn people up, and that's like, you know what I mean? Like,
well, that's how it. Yeah, it's interesting. Like DJing for me, similar to using Instagram as a tool. Like I always looked at DJing like I still have trouble considering myself a professional DJ. Yes, I was able to monetize it and create a business around it and then create a talent management company around it. But I always used it as the same thing. It was first a tool to make income to supplement my low-paying job in New York. And it gave me extra hours in the day to earn income and use it to enhance my experience as a New Yorker. It kind of gave me keys to the city, which I never thought I would get, which I always thought was interesting. And then soon after that, it became a way for me to quit my day job and working for someone, because inherently I like failing by myself. I like winning by myself. I like controlling my destiny. I don't like to have it be controlled as much. So corporate environments aren't where I strive. So it allowed me a supplementary income in the off hours of the workday to earn money while I could try and throw things at the wall during the day and not feel like I wasn't earning income. So that's how I always looked at it. And then once I started creating, kind of more presence in the DJ world, I then realized I could go to corporate DJing, which was different hours, not the 11 till 4 in the morning, but yet, which I called the gentleman's hours, which are like 5 to 7 or 6 to 8. That became a different avenue of business. So then I looked at DJing as a door to a marketing department to create a more robust program. I DJ'd for J. Crew, met the team, and then I was like, I really like your magazine. Let's figure out a way for me to get in the catalog as me, not a model. So I did like the Ludlow suit as Brendan Fallis, which was really cool. And then that moved to a gig for Mr. Porter, and then I was in Mr. Porter and whatever. I was able to kind of strategize how I could use it as a tool to get further, which is similarly how I use Instagram, is like a tool to create more bigger relationships that I can then leverage in a way, or pitch them ideas, because the door has been opened through kind of that music was the resume before. Now the content is a resume, so to speak.
You know, I mean, we share that Ludlow suit story, which is awesome.
Yeah.
The you know, when I'm listening to you, what I'm hearing is, and I do want to get into your story from as way back as we can remember, but what I'm hearing is that you are always thinking of ways to make and do. And it's not just like, oh, I'm DJing because I enjoy putting music out, or I enjoy watching a crowd of people get excited and fired up about the music I'm doing. It's a stepping stone towards something bigger and better. And you know, I think that's what makes you, right? I think, you know, like you said, there's a ton of DJs out there that you know, are calling themselves DJs. I remember not long ago, a couple years ago, a buddy of mine who's a DJ booking agent said, you know, I can get you a couple $1,000 a night to DJ. And I was like, dude, I've never fucking DJ'd before. And he was like, yeah, whatever, it doesn't matter. Like, I'll just, you know, we'll figure it out. And and I think, you know, that when you get people with some, you know, with a little bit of a following, there's an opportunity, and that's the sort of bad side of DJing that I think you talked about before. For a guy like you, literally, when I said earlier, I don't think that I've been to an event in the last 5 years, events that I go to, which are not many because I'm a dad and I don't really go to events much anymore. But the ones that I have gone to, you're DJing there, and and it's not at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night. It's at like 7 o'clock at night at some sort of store opening.
Incredible hours.
Yeah. So let's get into your story, man, because I believe that our past doesn't define who we are today necessarily, but has certainly helped to shape the people we are today. So I'd love to learn more, because I actually don't know what your you know, your early day story was. So I'd love to hear about it.
You know, as far as I can remember, you know, my dad is a lawyer, and in a very small town, we're from 2,500 people. He joined his father's law firm, and they're just, you know, that's an entrepreneurial endeavor in my mind. They're two people. His father passed away shortly after that. They worked together for a couple of years, and, you know, his career has been long since that, but he's running his own business. So kind of taking from that, having more entrepreneurial spirit, he works very hard, and then taught me at a young age. You know, we lived on 5 acres of property. He'd pay me to cut the lawn, you know, so right away I was learning to understand about like I wasn't just getting allowance or like lunch money, I'd have to earn it. So I think he did a really good job early of teaching me that, you know, I had to kind of like put in some effort to get that income back in just a minimal way, but also great having your kids cut the lawn. Still sounds amazing if you didn't have to pay someone and could teach someone along the way. And then after that, I started getting into competitive skiing, which I worked my way up to the Canadian team. And that for me was
let me just stop you there for a sec. So, because the way I like to do this is when I hear something that just doesn't sound normal, right? Like you started competitive skiing and you worked your way up to the Canadian team. That's a bit of a spike in a journey that, you know, most people don't take. Can you remember a feeling at that age or when you were doing that where you were like, I'm gonna be the best, or I'm going to take this as far as I can?
Yeah, I just remember, like, you know, not we all, but a lot of us played sports growing up, and tennis, and, you know, so I started playing soccer first, then baseball, and I'm Canadian. Everyone had to play hockey, you know, it's like just part of the culture. But I remember skiing and just loving it so much that, you know, I used to do racing, like downhill racing, and it wasn't really for me, and I kind of sucked at it. Like, it wasn't doing well. And then the club I was at opened a freestyle program, which is like moguls and aerials, and I moved over there, and it gave you more freedom and was a little more creative and expressive, and I really enjoyed that. So I kind of dove into that, and then realized I was just kind of good at it because I was passionate about it, probably, and I was passionate about like having my own creativity. Like, racing is just how fast can you get here, and that's it. Takes a bit of creativity to get down the line in the fast way, whatever, but there's no overtly expressive nature to it. And freestyle gave me that lane to really do your own tricks, find your own techniques, and like express yourself how you got to. And I liked all the peers in the sport were like, super motivational and interesting, and they had cool programs. So I started to do that, and then kind of outshined a lot of the people, or outshined, whatever the word is, at the people in my program, and made like the Southern Ontario team, just like the first division outside of club level. And then next thing, kept really focused and took it more seriously, started going to summer camp, reading motivational books. In Pursuit of Greatness was this book, like I still remember to this day, that kind of made me understand visualization and how important, I'm like 15 years old at this point, and I'm like,
who put that book in front of you? Did you decide to read that book?
No, we were at trampoline camp, which is obviously like such a fun thing to be a part of. So every weekend my parents would drive me like 2 hours to Toronto to this trampoline place. Shout out to my parents for being so dedicated, by the way. But we go there, and then our coach brought in a motivational person to talk to the group. And we started talking about visualization, because it was so important for you to visualize yourself standing on the podium, doing a perfect run, visualizing errors you might have and fixing them before you even got to that moment of competition, because it's on you, And that book really, like I read it multiple times, just kind of opened my eyes to helping me understand that I wanted to go somewhere, and picturing what it would look like to go to the Olympics and stand on a podium. So that was cool. So that kept me kind of motivated to go there. And and then I made the Ontario team and pushed through that, started competing more internationally, meeting such great communities of people. And I loved kind of the network you were in, as well as the sport. And then I made the Canadian national team and blew my knee out halfway through the first season. Life took a turn, what I think is for the better. The way I'm kind of bred through sport is, learn from every mistake and create a positive from that learning. Never, harbor that and make it negative, really act out on your life. And I think it was a welcome switch, which in career and school and moving to be more entrepreneurial, which I didn't understand at the time, and was really upset about the fact that I had to either keep going or not in skiing. But I'm so happy it ended when it did, to be honest, because I started coaching for 5 years after. I gave back all the knowledge I had to a team of kids. And then 5 of those kids became like my life students, and they still call me life coach to this day, and we all stay in touch. One of them is now a DJ who we manage, like just able to grow with these people for so long. So it was like a really cool way to get back.
That's amazing, man.
A lot of stuff. Yeah.
So you got injured. Was your plan to potentially take this skiing thing professional? I mean, was that something that you were going to do?
I think anyone with my mindset, and similarly your mindset, won't stop till you get to the peak of what you consider the peak is for you, however you set that out. Like, I just wanted to get to the Olympics, whether I won gold or not. Obviously a dream when you're there. It's the Super Bowl, it's the Olympics. You want to get there. So you work so hard and put in all this time in the off season and on. And, similar to you lifting, you have a goal, and you're going to get there, and you're going to do it until you feel like you accomplished it, So, but sport is different. Like, age is a factor. These young kids start coming up, and suddenly you're getting older, and you don't even understand why. I matured later. I mean, I was 5'1" going into 10th grade. I was the shortest kid in class. So I just matured later in general. And then I think that kind of was in sport too. Like, I was a little, not old, but on the older side of making the Canadian team, but I kept sticking it out and knew I wanted to get there, but definitely wasn't the young, talented, gifted kid. Like, I had to work for it, but then blew my knee out. And the first mentality is like, oh, I'm going to, recover for 6 months, train for 3, and come back stronger than ever and be better than anyone's ever thought I could be, because all this time you have to strategize when you're down, understand your mental capacity and keep going. Because we all know, like, athletes, like, it's maybe 30% physical and then 70% mental, obviously, of how you can get there. Like, at one level, everyone kind of hits the same ish level. But then I remember specifically exactly when and where one of my mom's friends said, Brendan, there's more to life than skiing. And I kind of like gave her a snarky look, probably said something a little rude, and went to my room and was like so upset about it, but was mature enough at age 21. Hard to believe. I can't believe that's considered mature at all based on what I know now, but mature enough to understand that it bothered me so much that there was probably truth to it. So I then reverted and understood that I need to take that with a grain of salt and understand why it bothered me, and then ended up going to school and coaching, at which point coaching was so nice because you earned income, you still skied as many days, and there was no pressure personally of winning or losing, although you now skied every kid's run besides yours. So it was like a little more stressful, but not on a, personal failure level. So it was cool and it allowed me to kind of grow.
What did you enjoy more? Did you enjoy skiing yourself or coaching?
Just full different enjoyment. Because like winning and staying on top of a podium and knowing you did it all by yourself with like your coach's guidance, but it was on you, is like, you can never replace that feeling of success, especially when there's people you were dying to beat who you just, dominate, who had dominated you before. Like those feelings are just so good. But then coaching was a whole different feeling because you're so proud of the knowledge and time you've spent with kids to succeed, and that becomes its own cool factor.
How's your relationship with your parents? Do you have a great relationship with your parents, or have you always had a great relationship with your parents?
My dad was always a hard worker, so he's still like 76 logging hours till 1 a.m. at the office. But we're all so tight. He's just a workaholic, and my mom was a teacher, and then after she had us, chilled out and just became a full-time mother, which we all know is more work than anyone could imagine. Just super great relationship. They weren't the parents that were there while I was skiing, being like the hockey moms and the momagers, and they were just always incredibly supportive, but they weren't like on the road all the time, trying to control every situation, forcing me. Like, they really gave me space to let me learn on my own and succeed and fail on my own, which I always respect, but being wildly supportive the whole time.
So at 21, you get injured, and then you get into coaching. You coach for 5 years. So that journey took you to 26. Is that right? My math correct?
Yeah, 26. And then it was cool though. So my coaching contract, and this is like a big part of my entrepreneurial life beginning. My coach's contract was for 7 or 8 months. So then I had like 4 months to do something, so I had to do something. So I started, I can remember like the first entrepreneurial things I ever did. I went to Whistler to summer camp when I was like 12 or 13. You'd ski on the glacier there in the summer. And I remember all these hippies in the park, like with devil sticks. And I thought it was cool, and no one was doing it in my hometown. So I like went home and bought dowels and hockey tape and tennis balls and leather, and like made them and sold them to all the kids at school, and like created the culture of like devil sticks at school, which was super funny. But then that kind of carried on, and I started I created my own business during those 4 months, summer months off, where I would go to your house and detail your car because I was passionate about cars, and it was called like At Home Auto Detail, which is a great model because I would use your water and your power and clean your car for cash. So I do that, and I hired another guy and like paid him, and we would just cruise around and detail like 4 or 5 cars a day at $100 to $150. Great cash. And then I worked at night. I started managing these promotional girls who worked at clubs selling cigarettes, which obviously is probably not the best business now to be talking about, but Benson and Hedges had a huge DJ series called Gold Club Series. And they did all these events with Deep Dish and Tiesto and Sasha and Digweed and all these massive house DJs. So I got into like the DJ culture through that, but I was earning like my day income and then my night income. So I'd always been kind of double dipping and working, but for like cool experiences that I thought were interesting and not traditional.
And so, you're still in Ontario at this point?
Yeah, I'm still in Toronto.
Toronto happens to be a very cool city. Toronto, Montreal, both of those cities are really cool cities. When did the DJ thing start to become part of your life? You just mentioned like a little brief sort of interaction with DJing, but when did it really click for you that this was something that you wanted to do?
Yeah, so I moved to New York. Shortly after that, I was going to become a commercial real estate agent, wrote my license, interviewed with a lot of people, and one of them was my dad's friend who was pretty successful at Colliers and he was like, have you traveled yet? You should travel. So I bailed on being a commercial real estate agent for a couple months, went to Southeast Asia, like found myself, quote unquote, and then stopped to visit a friend I had skied with in New York who, I was staying on his floor. And he just graduated Parsons, started a company, and he's like, you should come work for us. And I was like, what does that even mean? I had like camouflage cargo shorts on and like a Bingtang shirt from Bali or something, And I went and interviewed with them, and they were like, 3 people who came out of Parsons, and they were like, we'd love to hire you if you can figure out how to get here. And I was like, what? Like, I'd never even been to New York before. I just stopped on my way back, So I was like, oh, this is cool. So I went home, bartended for 4 months while I called immigration lawyers, picking their brains, pretending I was going to sign with them to figure out how to get my visa, but I couldn't afford the $4,000 or whatever. So I just took all the notes I could from them and then went to the border myself, got it done for $50, moved to New York for a salary of $21,000 a year. And this is a long way of telling you about why I started DJing. Basically, $21,000 a year in New York in 2007 was like impossible to live, basically, but I just needed a window to try it out.
What were you doing? What was the job?
I called myself a consultant at this brand called Launch Collective, which helps startup fashion brands kind of put together marketing business plans and get their samples made. But I was really just an office assistant. I got lunch, I ordered a printer, water systems, whatever.
You were just getting going.
Yeah, I was getting going. But then some clients would come in and they'd turn them down because I didn't think there was potential. And I'd be like, I could help you guys out. So I'd like start like low key helping like Dee and Ricky on the side, like these kids with the Lego hearts. And I just meet kids out and figure out how to help them. But I started DJing at night solely because my friend managed Pop Burger, which you probably remember that restaurant.
I do.
I would go hang out with him and eat free meals because I had like no money. So I was like, oh man, free burgers and some drinks is such a win. So then they opened one across from FAO Schwartz up by the Apple store. And I would go there on Monday nights because it was kind of dead. So then he's like, why don't you bring your computer in? There's DJ equipment here and no one ever comes on Mondays. Let's come up, eat a burger, and let's like teach ourselves how to DJ. So I did that and then got notice from the manager one night because Randy Gerber was there with Cindy Crawford and was like, this guy's great. I'd love to hire him at Stone Rose. And I was like, he told the owner of Pop Burger that. And he's like, nah, he's my guy. He's on Friday nights. He's busy. And I was like, what? I'm not on Friday nights. But then they brought me on Friday nights and I started opening for Marley Marl, Biggie's DJ, which was cool. And then it kind of then I started doing downtown and then people would come in and I made myself business cards. When I went out with him other nights, my friend, or I went out with anyone, I'd pass them out and be like, yo, if I can give you one business card a day, like I go out, like 200 days a year probably in New York because I'm just fresh to the city and nightlife is such a good way to meet people. I just give a card out and like hopefully people would hit me up or come by Pop Burger and check me out. And then it just...
Let's talk about that for a second. I think that is incredibly advantageous for people that are trying to get their careers going or just try to develop relationships in a new place. If you gave out just one business card a day, you'd get a return on that. And did that work for you? Was that strategy something that actually worked for you?
I can't remember if it exactly, like there was direct ROI on giving a card and getting a job or getting an opportunity. Because you meet so many people and cell phones were, iPhone, BlackBerry was still out. Like you'd give a lot of numbers too. But more so it was the mentality to me of if you create a card for yourself, and I still believe this today, you have to own that you're doing that. You don't just make a card as like, I might be up to this. There's something, and I've never really thought about this until right now, but I think there's something that firms up in your mind that you're taking this seriously if you go as far to make a physical item that you then give to people that will exist when you're not around. It's something you got to stick to, and obviously people change jobs over time. That card could be meaningless a year later, But giving, like handing that personally to someone and looking in their eye and be like, this is what I do. Like, if you're interested, hit me up. Like, shows a level of commitment from yourself. So I think the ROI probably for that exercise to me was, okay, I want to do this. I need to like secure and establish myself in this besides when I'm physically working. Like, I have to be able to talk about this. So that was maybe more so the exercise of it than, you know, I gave out 200 cards and 40 people hit me back and it turned into this much work. Like, I don't really know, because DJing is such a thing when people hear you, you know, they come, but maybe they saw my name on a flyer for a club after and remember getting the card and then came to check me out, then hired me later. There's so many ways it could work. But I do think it's important. And I still tell a lot of people who are up and coming to like, make a card and follow up and get people's cards and follow up. You know, I used to DJ at night till 4 a.m. I always get the manager's info, and I wake up because I ran business hours still. Even though I was up till 4 or 5, I would wake up at 9 and have a nap in the afternoon to catch up. But I wanted to seem like I was on my program and on my hustle. So I'd follow up with, you know, the bar manager at 9 a.m. being like, that was dope. Thank you so much. Like, let me know if you have any feedback. Like, would love to get in there again. And they'd obviously follow up at 2 in the afternoon being like, man, crazy, you already wrote me an email. Like, awesome, love to have you back. And just treating it like a job rather than a hobby, which again, I think, sorry for the rant on this one, but I think, you know, a lot of people, I started DJing when I was 28. A lot of people start when they're like 19 and they're just getting wasted, having fun and not considering it a career. But I was looking at, again, an avenue to something. So I needed to have a different level of professionalism around it.
You know, the business card thing is such an interesting topic because, you know, when I first started, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, like once you print that card, it makes it real, not necessarily for the people that you're giving it to, but to you. Right. And I think that's potentially what you're trying to say here is that, you know, the act of giving the card out might not, you know, garner the results that the action actually says it will, but potentially printing a card cements something in real life outside of in between your own two ears, which I think is really smart. I also, you know, I always have a business card. I don't necessarily always carry business cards around with me or hand them out, but I always have a business card. And I've actually never thought about that until you just mentioned it. One thing I will say, though, is I get a lot of business cards from people. And the interesting thing about business cards is that I might not act on a business card when somebody gives it to me within weeks of somebody giving it to me. However, I do keep business cards, and I will like open up a drawer one day and just like zip through a bunch of business cards, and I'll be like, oh wow, wait a second, I should call that person. I should reconnect with that person. And I think that in itself is worth having a business card, because it does actually bring things to fruition at some point. Not all the time, but it certainly does. So I think that is a really cool thing. I think, you know, people, you know, when somebody starts the conversation with a business card, I think those days are kind of over. Unless you're in a super corporate environment, which is like you sit down at the conference table, everybody puts their business cards out. Which is just an uncomfortable situation for me in the first place, but I'm sure for you, you know.
Totally.
But like when you think about, like, I remember a story, meatball shop, about 6 months in, and I'd never seen anything quite like this. But a bus pulled up in front of the meatball shop on Stanton Street, and about 30 Japanese businessmen walked out of the bus. And Daniel and I were in the restaurant, and we were like, what is going on here? They lined up, and we were like, what's going on here? And then one of them walked in with two hands, walked right up to me, put the business card out like this, and like sort of just waited for me to take it. And it was the weirdest experience, but basically that is traditional for Japanese businessmen. Like, one person goes in to represent a crew, and you know, and that's how they introduce themselves to me. And, you know, so the business card it carries some weight, man, specifically in other cultures. You know, it's just like, it's something that we don't talk about much anymore, but I'm happy we talked about it, because I think it's really, really important for people that are coming up and trying to create their way, you know.
Situationally dependent what you're doing. Like, I find it hard now for me to have a business card in general, like when I'm DJing, it makes a lot of sense to give it out. People come up, make a request, and like, I love you. This is great music. Like, how can we get you to work? Like, what's your name? And it's too hard when you're DJing to like grab someone's phone, put a number in, whatever. Yeah. So it's just like an easy way for me to share my info. But then again, like I would never roll up, like you're saying, to a conference table and put it down. Even conversationally, like because I'm up to so many different things as you are, I always like to try and ask the questions first and understand what people do and how can I feed one of the things I'm up to into relating to what they're up to. Because most people are, and I'm sure you agree with me, like most people are trying to do one thing and do it really well. And then there's a whole series of entrepreneurs that are up to a bunch of things. But, most people have kind of one career path they're following. And I like to try and sway something I'm up to into that mindset. So I'm trying not to be vocally give out my card and like kind of give away what I'm doing because it might not relate to that person and that conversation could fall short pretty quickly. So I've been trying to learn to use that tactic a little more, which I think is useful as well.
I also appreciate you bringing that up because I, like you, have my hands in a bunch of different things, right? And obviously we're in an unprecedented time in the world right now with the pandemic and the coronavirus and also, all of the stuff that's happening in the world of racial discrimination. But when it comes to business, I'm in the hospitality business. A large part of your income is in the events business. And I have watched overnight my industry get annihilated and yours as well, but like absolutely annihilated and just decimated. And so I'm grateful for this sort of scattered lifestyle that I have in regards to where I have put my attention, because if I was all restaurant, if that's all I did and all I knew, I would be terrified right now.
Yeah, you'd be flatlined. I know. I agree with you. It's like I've never been more excited to understand how to exist on my own and face challenges and tackle them personally rather than like, being furloughed or fired and being out on the street and having to apply for jobs right now. It's happening to a lot of people, obviously, but I wouldn't know how to be equipped to do that. I think I'm definitely scared, not scared, but, it's fearful, watching DJing being 50% of my income just go to zero. Similar to your restaurant being closed, like you having to lay off staff and like not create any income there. And like, when do we come back? How do we do it? All things you got to think about and switch it up in the future and whatever. But then you have your other stuff going on. So you're like able to focus energy there, understand if that's a monetizable avenue that you want to follow, that you kind of had sidelined, but now you're going to put more effort into it. That's kind of where I'm at right now, where I'm like, okay, I've been doing all these other things. I've created this brand equity for myself as a person. Like, how do I roll that into the next thing that doesn't require, as much manual labor per se as showing up and DJing somewhere, but I can like create a new avenue to put my energy into that I can still affect people, influence people, but create something that like gives back to them and myself at the same time. And it's like something new and fun that I'm just excited about. So that's been like a real, and I've been saying that for a long time. Like, I don't want to be a 50-year-old DJ. I don't think. I mean, couple kids in your arms and like trying to play some music seems strange. Not like it's wrong, but yeah, I just think, I'm still going to do it, but I'd like to do it on my own terms rather than have to take DJ gigs to get by. I'd rather be more selective because I've created another business that I'm excited about that I can live from as well.
My brother, this is the perfect time for you and I to pick up that men's apparel brand, dude. Let's go. Let's go.
Let's go. I know. We got to get back on it.
So there's a bunch of questions that I want to ask you because before this whole thing hit, as I follow you, as many others follow you on social, you are probably in the air more than you're on the ground. I would argue to say that that you fly and travel more than you stay put. Do you have any cool, fun travel hacks, travel tips that you can offer that, you know, because of someone that flies so much, could be a benefit to someone?
Yeah, well, I don't know how much it's currently a benefit to anyone because no one can go anywhere. Well, you can, I guess, but it's up to you if you want to risk it. But yeah, last year I spent 182 days in New York only because I was tracking that to try and figure out if I needed to pay full taxes or not. And I just missed it. But yeah, I move around a lot all over the world in no strategic manner, which is also tiring. But yeah, tons of, little things which blow my mind on planes that people don't do is like, as soon as you take off, take that bag from under your feet that's in front of your feet, if you didn't put it in the overhead, and put it behind your legs. So you can just put your legs forward. Like I look at everyone sitting with their knees flexed at 90 or even worse to keep their little bag under their economy seat when you could just put it behind your legs and extend your legs out. Mind blowing.
Oh my gosh, I never thought of that.
It helps your blood flow so much. You recline your chair, it feels comfortable. Your legs also rest on your backpack or whatever you have there. Easiest thing going of all time. Literally never see anyone do it. And I'm like, this is wild. I need to do a YouTube episode on this or something and just tell people just to get with it because it's so much more comfortable. So there's a very easy, everyone can do it if you're on a plane. And then the bigger things are the ROI on Clear and TSA PreCheck. It's such an easy expense, especially if you're entrepreneurial, to write off against it. Or if you have a credit card, call your credit card companies. Sometimes they just they pay for it because it's part of your membership dues. But you can show up to the airport if you don't have to check a bag, literally 15 minutes before your flight and still get on, that's a no-brainer. I would do that all day. And then my big advice to anyone, if you can do it, mostly not women because they can't kind of survive traveling with just a carry-on, which I totally respect. They have way more makeup and shoe choices and stuff than we do. But just carrying on allows you such freedom to move fluently from getting on an earlier flight, which if you can save an hour and get on a standby flight and it's a short flight, who cares? Just get home. When you're over traveling, you want to be home as soon as you can.
Is there a bag that you recommend that you like a lot?
I've been a Rimowa guy just because I like the return policy and kind of lifetime warranty, but now that's up. They only do a couple of years. But for me, it's worked. I don't know. I haven't tried Away bags. I haven't tried any of the other companies. I just had Rimowa because I bought one in Berlin and then we kind of stacked up from there and it's just been good to me. Rolls really well, good wheels. Wheels are so important. That's another thing, get a rolling carry-on with 4 wheels. I don't understand why you would 2-wheel it anymore. It's so uncomfortable. You don't need the weight of your bag. And you can also put your backpack or your purse on top of the rolly while you roll through the airport and have nothing on your body. I carried a weekender bag around that was so heavy across one shoulder, plus a backpack, no rolling luggage, for 2 years while I traveled with Theophilus London around the world and probably ruined my back just because I thought it looked cool. Who cares? Traveling is so hard on your body. Just take the stress off your body as much as you can and drink so much water that you don't think you can consume anymore.
I'm going to bounce around a little bit from fun stuff to serious stuff. You are in a relationship. You and Hannah have been together for how long?
8 years, 8 or 9 years. Yeah.
8 or 9 years. You guys are, I would sort of qualify as a real deal power couple. Relationships. Yeah, you guys crush. And I love watching you too. And not only do I appreciate you guys for just the hustle that the two of you have, but it just looks like you really enjoy each other a lot. And I think that is something that is really important to talk about right now specifically because couples, married couples, or just boyfriend, girlfriend, whatever, are spending more time with each other than they ever have probably in their relationship, right? Potentially quarantined together. Yeah. Do you have any relationship advice, things that have sort of come up in your relationship that you guys have stuck to or made a conscious effort to work on together to stay in each other's good graces?
I mean, yes. It's not, luckily one day we did a college signing day that Michelle Obama runs, and we met her, and we'd just gotten engaged. Still one of the coolest things, one of the coolest people I've met or experience I've had, and only talked to her for a second. But we were like, we're engaged, and she said, congratulations, like, don't know you guys, obviously, but so happy for you. And relationships are a lot of work, even for Barack and I. Like, there's never a day it's not work. And just understand that going into this. And I was like, that was so deep and like awesome. And like, you kind of know it, but you look at them and you're like, obviously their life is stressful being the president and everything, but like they seemingly have a great relationship. But yes, it's work for everyone, even if someone seemingly has a perfect relationship, which I don't think there's any such thing. It's a lot of work, as you would know. There's a lot of giving, a lot of pulling, a lot of, just listening. Listening is probably my biggest takeaway from being married this long. Is like, you think obviously what's right for both of you because it's just how we're wired, but understanding, like, once you share life with someone, it's not just about you. And I think you could speak to that more, but for me, it'll change even more when we have kids. The whole dynamic shifts again. But, like, easy tips for us are, we're super lucky to have found each other and be into all the same stuff, from music to travel to our entrepreneurial mentality to, our outlook on failing and positivity. Little things like surprising someone, or doing, not even full-blown surprising, but just doing little things that your partner doesn't expect, for me, goes so far. Whether it's like every day your wife is having coffee and you just bring her one in bed sometime to surprise her, or, like, it doesn't have to be like the biggest surprise that you booked a dinner and had a Uber out front that she didn't expect. There's, like, it doesn't have to be so involved. It can just be little things that, people wouldn't expect, that you went grocery shopping and just filled the fridge, when it's something that, as the two of you, it's the thing my wife does. She's passionate about cooking and food, so she does it, but it's not like she always wants to, like, so if I do it one time every now and then, it's just like, you have other things to do. Like, I just wanted to do it. I'm going to cook you dinner tonight. Like, little things like that, I think, go far, and however that exists in your relationship are just nice. And I think don't go unnoticed. Treat others as you want to be treated. Like, that's something I like to happen to me, so I try and portray it outward so it also comes back to me and I feel good about the whole thing. But yeah, keeping things fresh. Things can get stale so quickly, and especially in this time of quarantine. I think, just hearing from, luckily not too many of my friends, but a couple who are like, I just never spent this much time at home with my wife. Like, this is crazy. And I'm like, what? Like, I'm enjoying this whole time. And like, we're doing such fun things that we never thought we would, because we didn't have this time to spend together, which is a whole, like, gardening. I saw you guys, doing the same kind of stuff in your yard. It's like, find projects and do them together and educate each other and like create things that you're both proud of, so cool.
Totally.
So fun.
This morning, my wife and I have been working on a bunch of projects because we've actually made the decision to move upstate, which is crazy. Totally crazy. I never thought in a million years that I would move out of New York City, and we're going to give it a go for a year. But, since being up here and we have this awesome property, we're super grateful for it. We've had this list of projects, and I've been watching you guys just crushing it with the yurt and you inspired me with pavers. So I just like ripped up the whole entire walkway to the front of my house, and we've got like a chicken coop and a chicken run, and we're extending the garden, and we're putting in pavers and like all sorts of things that we've done. And this morning, I'm holding a 4x4, an 8-foot 4x4. Like a fence post, and my wife is on the ground pouring concrete into the hole. And and
you're just looking over, being like, what?
Yeah, I'm like, I just stopped, and I was just like, I kneeled down and I said, we're such a good team. And she looked at me and gave me a big kiss, and I was like, oh my gosh, like we've been together for 15 years, and it's like, it's just awesome for me to see another couple getting after it, and you guys inspire me.
I agree with you. I think like you're your confidence and your compassion comes from a place of, self-security. And if you're doubting yourself all the time, how are you going to give that energy to other people? I don't know, because I've, worked really hard on my self-work and my self-health, that I would assume it's got to be so difficult, and I honestly probably just maybe non-existent. And yeah, shout out to you guys. I mean, I saw you at the Jackhammer and your wife filming, which just like made me smile so much. I'm like, this is so sick. Like Hannah would be out there doing the same thing. I have a leaf blower and I'm like, babe, come check out. Like, you're so proud of the work you've done.
Yeah.
And I've watched my dad do it for years, but we grew up in that countryside setting on 5 acres of property. And my dad had like raised the canopy of the trees and he'd be like, Marianne, get out here and see it. And she'd be like, ugh, again, like, great work. We're thrown into this situation now. I'm like, look, Hannah, I just laid down these stone pathway for the fire pit to the yurt. And she's like, oh my God, like, great work, and like so excited about it. And it's like, yeah, it's just something you're doing like together, and like enjoying. And I agree with you. Like, we're considering moving out here full time. It's like, I never thought we'd even think about that. We haven't committed to it, but it's not an option.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
I got to say that, the first couple of months, it was just a conversation. And then as things unfolded and we actually went back down to the city, I had this feeling, and I'm born and raised in Manhattan. I am like as city kid as you could possibly imagine. I still call myself a city kid, even though I'm breaching 40. But I feel like I'm fucking 25, and I will never give up on New York. I mean, I will never give up on New York.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere. For sure.
Right. But we're still young and we have a lot of time. So why not, if there's any time to give it a shot, why not now?
And you're like, if it doesn't work out for a year, there's nothing lost. It's just learning, right. And then you'd move back and maybe the city would be back to some sort of normalcy, or maybe you never come back and you just keep a smaller apartment there to come do work, spend 2 days a week and then spend 5, like, I think that's what's cool about the lifestyles we've both cut out for ourselves, and not that we lead, but we've chosen to lead, is that we've given ourselves flexibility to experiment, because again, similarly, we both decide our reality and our outcome, which is incredible.
I think I think this podcast is a great testament to pointing out the positivity in diversification, right? Like, I think in, growing up, you hear you should focus on this and you should go after this and you should get after that as hard as you can and focus. And now we're hit with a catastrophe. And if you didn't have, again, like I said earlier, if you don't have a fallback plan or a plan B or C or D, you're kind of really scared. I'm so grateful for my desire and ability to diversify my passions. And you are, I would consider you pretty much, and you should take this because it's true, it's a modern day Renaissance man. You know what I mean? Like, you've stuck your hand into so many different pots, and I want to ask you a few more questions about things that I just want to know, because I think go ahead. a lot of people would want to know.
And I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, dude. Yeah. I mean, it's the truth. I was watching you about a month and a half ago, and you've been doing these sort of run and talk to the camera, and you introduced that book, Obstacles Are the Way, right? Is that
incredible?
And I listened to that book, and it was mind-blowing. It was such a good book. It was such a good book.
And so timely.
Oh, dude.
I don't know if there's ever a bad time to read that book. You could relate it to any situation you're in, but specifically with life's obstacle currently in front of us, it was the most interesting read.
Yeah, and I was so grateful that I caught that when you did that, because those Instagram stories are like 24 hours and they're gone, Podcasts that you're listening to right now.
I've honestly stopped, besides Born or Made, great podcast, you've heard it. I've honestly fallen back on podcasts a bit, unless someone sends me an interview and says, like, you should listen to this, it reminded me of you and I think you take a lot away from it, like some guest on Joe Rogan or the Rob Dyrdek one. I was starting to listen to so many, and there's just a lot of fluff
And overlap, right? Lots of overlap.
And overlap. And, I respect this podcast because I've actually been saying things I've never thought of, and you've sparked me to think about things I did that I never even knew I was doing, which is really cool. I'm learning so much just from being on this, which is cool. But again, like, I've just been into audiobooks so much more lately because there's finite points, and it's not a discussion where obviously discussions can get you places, and there's a time and place. For the last 2 years, I listened to just podcasts, but then I realized I wasn't reading enough books. So I've just kind of been in a book zone and trying to consume as much knowledge as I can. Because I honestly haven't read a book physically in probably 10 plus years. So it's just nice to consume literary knowledge again.
How awesome are audiobooks? It's like the best thing ever. I mean,
I can't, if you're really learning and enjoying, like, I feel like I can just run for an extra hour. It's kind of crazy.
Brendan Fallis, my man, this was awesome. I have to finish with a question that I ask every guest. Do you think you were born or made?
I think I agree with what you said right off the start. I think it's a healthy mix of both. If you weren't born, you couldn't be made. So definitely your parents instill some things in you and traits that you carry, or your grandparents, you might be a skip the generation, whatever. But I think it's a lot of you carry those certain things, but they're only able to shine by what you learn and all the learnings you go as you go through life and the experience you've had that allow them to be relevant or not. So I think minimally you're born and then you make yourself along the way.
Love it. Love it. Many people agree. This was awesome, dude. I really, really appreciate you taking the time. I learned so much about you and just awesome tips and just ways to think about life in potentially ways I haven't thought about before. So that's why this podcast stuff is so, like, it's just been such an amazing journey and experience for me because I get to learn so much just by talking to people that inspire me.
Yeah.
You're the man. Much love. Give Hannah a hug for this guy and stay safe.
Thank you for creating a new platform for yourself, under yourself, that you're able to share your knowledge, other people's knowledge. I think it's awesome. Much respect for you. Attacking any new avenue in business, as we all know, is no small feat. And I think you're doing a very noble thing, and I'm proud of you.
Thanks, brother. Last thing. If there's one thing that you can leave the listener with today, what is that? To
what I said before, like, the second best time to start anything is today. The first would be yesterday or a week ago, whether it's a diet, whether it's a business you wanted to start. Actually, I hate the word diet. Whether it's a lifestyle change in food, whether it's, you want to start running, like, I'm going to start running on after July 4th because I'm going to have a big weekend. People put these weird milestones in front of them. Like, just put your shoes on and go for a 5-minute run. Like, just start today. It's a business. Like, start throwing things at the wall. You don't have to have the $1 million idea to put out there. Like, there's all little steps you can do to keep the momentum going. I think people get overwhelmed by the big picture and forget to do the little things that equal getting to that point. Like, if you want to run a marathon, go for the 5-minute jog. Just get started. And I think that's my tip is, like, just if you're thinking about something, just fucking do it. Start in the smallest way, but get going. Awesome. All right, man. I'm going to let you go. You're the best. All right, homie. Thank you. All right, man. Thank you.
Later.